I'm Bryce. My major is Earth Space Science Education. What I'd like to do with it is be a high school geology astronomy teacher here in Lincoln.
Hello, I'm Annie. My content area is middle school math education. And what I want to do with it is go to a small town like Crete, Nebraska and teach.
My name is Callista and I am majoring in math and math education. And after I get my undergrad, I think I'm going to either go teach at a high school somewhere, or I want to go to law school.
All right, so today we're going to go over multiplication. The easiest way to do this is if you take 3 times 4. The best, easiest way to do it is to write 3 out 4 times and add. Which would then give you 12.
3 plus 3 plus 3. That's 6. That's 6. That's 6. Which gives me 15. 4 times 2. 4. Look at this. 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 4. So that's 15 plus 4, which is 19.
All right. Looks like you got that one correct. That one correct as well. Oh, I'm sorry right here, Annie. See, you messed up right there. You missed that one. All right, so today we're going to go over multiplication. The easiest way to do this is if you take 3 times 4. The best, easiest way to do it is to write 3 out 4 times and add. Which would then give you 12. Calista, can you please show me, or tell me how many cents it would be if you took 5 times 4?
That's 1, 2. That's 5. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. 1, 3, 4. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups of 4 pennies. So I have 4 plus 4 is 8, plus another 4, 12, 16, 20 cents.
Correct, good job.
Now this is what we think about the reading that we are assigned for this week.
What stood out to me was the concept of teaching something instead of just teaching the actual subject. And what came up to me was back in our middle school when we were learning about the history of the universe. Instead of sitting up on a whiteboard like this and just drawing out a timeline of everything that happened to a small scale to where you can go well, the Big Bang was 14 billion years ago roughly, and the sun was created roughly 5 billion years. You have a small scale where you're sitting here looking at it. What he did was he took us out into the main hallway of our school, which is roughly a quarter mile long, and he took cones and put them at the very beginning and spaced out over that quarter mile. This is how long it took for the sun to form, and then at the very end, you had a lot of distance between the first 2 cones. And then you get down to here and you have a bunch of small, minuscule ones from like the dinosaurs to people. And so you really got the concept of how time is, in the universe is so long and so big.
So I have the reading out in front of me, and I highlighted some stuff that I thought was actually super interesting. So one thing that caught my eye was like on the second page, it said
that it pretty much said that the most basic goal of education is preparing students for further learning and more effective functioning in their lives. And I already knew that since we're in education and we are trying to figure out how to like help kids learn and that fun stuff. One thing that like I kind of like had a question about, or like another question to like talk about, was like, there's a quote and it says, misunderstandings in mathematics include diverse Mel rules where students overgeneralize rules for one operation and carry them over inappropriately to another, and then difficulties in the use of ratios and proportions and so on and so forth. And then one question that came into my mind was like, what can we do as future educators make sure that this doesn't happen? Like, is there any techniques that we can use? Is there any way of teaching we can use? Any sort of that. And my staple just broke. That's wonderful. Okay. One thing that I really liked about the reading, sorry, my staple just broke, so I'm gonna be expanding everything everywhere, was like, it was like further on into the article where it was like, how can we teach for understanding? And it actually gave us like 5 things that we can do. I think it's 5, maybe it's 6. It's 6. So the first thing was like, we can make learning a long-term thinking centered process. The second one was provide for rich ongoing assessments. The third one was support learning with powerful representations. Fourth one was pay heed to developmental factors. Fifth one, induct students into discipline, and then teach for transfer. I thought that was really cool for that, because then I can actually look back into it and then like in the future and be like, okay, well, in my future classroom, how can I do this? Or how can I do that? So I thought that was really cool, and I'm definitely gonna use that in my future classroom.
So what I really like about this article, Teaching for Understanding, is that it really brought out the attention to teachers or any future educators like us who we want to make sure our students retain and reflect on the information that's being taught to them. And I think it is important for students, or now and younger kids too, to make sure that they retain and understand the information instead of just showing their skills on a test. So I think it's really interesting about how captivating the beginning of the article was when they're talking about how different teachers were doing different stuff in different ways, as in, which is very broad to say, but like in a small town near Boston, a teacher of mathematics asks his students to design the floor plan of a community center, including dance areas, a place for a band, and other elements, because the floor plan involves geometric shapes. So it's just like ideas for future math classes, but then also gave a picture to even the reader and making sure the reader understands what the author is talking about. So in this article, one of the topics that the author talked about was how can we teach for understanding, and the second part of it was saying providing a rich ongoing assessment for students, because students need criteria, feedback, and opportunities for reflection from the beginning of any sequence of instruction.
So you got this one correct, and this one you got incorrect. Your mistake was here. Instead of the 4, that should either be a 5, or you could do 5 groups of 4. You can't intermix them.
Okay.